When I was in elementary school, I was thinking back to this actually the other day. I remember one of the teachers had asked every kid in the classroom, "What do you want to do when you get older? Where do you want to be when you grow up?" And every single kid in the class raised their hand when she mentioned going to university, in particular the prominent state university, which in my state is the University of Washington. Every single one of those 30 to 40 kids in the classroom, including myself, had raised their hand. And I was thinking to myself recently, how many of those kids not only did not end up going to that university, but did not end up going to university at all, including myself, by the way. And I would say it might be, probably is a majority of them. When it comes to university, when it comes to college, when it comes to this kind of societal expectation of you go to school, you graduate high school, you go straight to college, and you start your career, I believe it's a very primitive, if that's the right word, way to think. Now, I'm not anti college, I'm not super pro college. I'm pro productivity. I'm for doing whatever is going to have you live your life to the best of its ability. And I'll tell you what, for many people, college is not the best route. There are some people who might flourish in a college environment, whereas there are some people who are going to flourish in blue collar work, with entrepreneurship, with working. I know people who've gone to the military, got the GI Bill, very successful after that. But I get so sick and tired of this degrading of people, not just people in blue collar, but people in all different kinds of lines of work that didn't go to university, essentially saying, oh, they're uneducated. They're the uneducated class. Which to me is so derogatory and degrading to say to someone. How would you feel if someone said you are uneducated? You're ignorant is what they're saying. You're not smart enough is what they're saying. And let's think of the term in itself, uneducated. Uneducated in what? Because if someone went into blue collar work, they sure as heck are educated in roofing, in plumbing, when something goes wrong with your electricity, in infrastructure. They're definitely educated in those kind of topics. Someone who is a mechanic is very educated when it comes to cars. So people need to stop with this kind of derogatory, degrading kind of terminologies on people who didn't go to university. And I myself had put up with it. I took a few years off of school. I took a few years off my academic career, whatever you want to call it, after high school. I didn't go straight to college. I had worked a variety of jobs, some in blue collar. I was in a warehouse for a period of time. I was in a tree lot at a garden center for a period of time, doing a lot of physical labor. And I did get a lot of crap from peers who essentially were treating me like I was lesser. I remember when I was in high school, excuse me, I remember when I was in high school, a lot of students who had already applied. I didn't even know what the heck a major was when I graduated high school. A lot of people who had already applied to these universities and gotten in were wearing the colors of their college and all promise and hyped up to go there, and some of them even very arrogant. And I'll tell you guys something, which people talk about bittersweet and vengeance and all that, but I've talked about forgiveness. I'm not a vengeful person. But a lot of those people who were so arrogant, who were so high and mighty about going to their university and thinking they're better than people, I'll put it this way. I believe God humbles people in ways that they might not even imagine. There's been times in my life where I've actually prayed to be humbled, where I've needed to be humbled and brought to my knees. And I've seen it with people who have gone to university. A lot of those people, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of those people who were the most arrogant didn't get degrees that really gave them any opportunities. Which that's another big misunderstanding too, is you have one end of the argument that says pro college, you have to go to college, you have to go to college. You have the other end of the argument that's college is a scam, leaves you in debt, degrees are useless. Now, I'll put it this way. A lot of people going to university are getting degrees that are probably not going to benefit them in the long run and racking up debt in the process. But there are also degrees where you should have a college degree in order to get into those professions. For example, things like medical, law school, understanding that kind of stuff. A variety of different topics, fields of engineering. But a lot of young adults, I feel like, have this kind of dangerous mentality, because I think it's going to backfire for them in the long run, that going to college is going to guarantee me success under any circumstance. If I go to college, I'm going to be so ahead of the pack. I don't think that's how it is, guys. I really don't. I think that if you flourish in that kind of environment, great. But you shouldn't go there because of some societal expectation or family pressure. You should ultimately do what is going to best help you in the long run. I don't think a lot of people are really understanding that. Where even if you do get a degree, and even if it's a good degree, you still have to be marketable. You don't just need to be book smart. You also need to be people smart. You need to know how to interact. You need to know how to communicate. I remember, when I went to community college, I was in the engineering department after transferring from community college. And as I mentioned, being young and foolish, and I was insecure about being in community college, and I was insecure about not going to college at all and graduating at a later age than some of my peers in my class. But in many ways, that was a blessing in disguise, because I had figured out what I wanted to do. The degree that I actually wanted to get was something that I was interested in. Everything happens for a reason. I'm not going to sit there comparing myself to other people. I did enough of that when I was younger. Wasted enough energy on that when I was younger. Best thing I can do is be the best version of myself, ultimately. And when it comes to competition, competing with myself will inevitably put me in a place to be successful. But a lot of people who are in the engineering department, because of how strenuous the studying is, the learning is, and the kind of material is, were very book smart, but not very street smart when it comes to people smart, when it comes to stuff like that. Because they spent most of their developing years in an office or a study hall or a library. Whereas some of the people I've known who are the most people smart are actually people who didn't go to university. A lot of them in blue collar and other stuff where they've constantly had those person-to-person interactions. They're very good at reading people. They're very good at interacting with people, communicating with people. But I think it's important to understand this. There are so many more routes to success than university. For example, I know people who are younger than me who are plumbers making close to $200,000 a year. Didn't go to university at all. You know, it's something where I know people who did go to university and are doing very well for themselves too. But people need to be more open-minded to the possibility that it's not just college end all be all. Now, if someone doesn't truly, let's say someone is younger and perhaps doesn't know what they want to do with themselves or their life, I don't think they should just go to college and take generic classes. I don't really see what you're going to get out of that. I think maybe it's good to try things and dip your toes in the water and see what works for you. But I had to take time. And during that time, of course, I worked because I wanted to do something that was productive with my time. I was in a position where I was lucky enough to live with my parents, but I also didn't want to just rely on them. So it's just, people really need to take a step back, be humble as well, and understand that no one's better than anyone because of a diploma or because of a bachelor's degree or whatever it might be. I myself am actually very critical of the college system, and I'm someone who went to university. The reason when people say things like college is a scam, I'll tell you guys straight up, I think there's some truth to that. Because we're given these textbooks every year that are just minutia changes with a variable. Keep in mind the fundamentals of subjects like math have been around for centuries, yet they want us to pay an extra $120, $130 every year for a textbook. So, you know, there's things like that where just ways to get money out of people. And a lot of the times the classes kind of insinuate you need to have this version of the textbook because the problems in the homework are going to be from that, you know, the latest version. So, just my thoughts, guys. Just something I was thinking about earlier, because I don't think there's anything wrong with going to college, but I think people also need to stop looking down on those who didn't go to college. People need to stop looking down on people who go into different lines of work. Without things like blue collar work, white collar work would just not exist. I mean, things like the house I'm in now, the roads you drive on, those are there because of the construction workers, the blue collar workers. And I don't understand why. I don't know if any of you guys maybe came from a family who went to college or dealt with it in school yourself, from teachers and principals and stuff like that, of, oh, well, if you don't go to college, you're going to end up being a loser. Completely false way to think. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for viewing the video. Hope you guys have a great day.